Welcome to Get a Word In, a podcast about content marketing. I'm your host, Adam Walker. I'm passionate about sharing stories and knowledge through content, especially in the form of podcasting. In fact, I co-founded Edgewise.media, a podcast-first marketing content agency. On this show, I interview content marketers at some of the top companies in the world and discover what's working for them, what isn't, and most importantly, what's next. So stay tuned and get ready for some great content about content marketing. Joining me on the show today is Michael Seymour, a self-proclaimed growth marketer, if I'm not mistaken. So, Michael, welcome to the show. Who are you and what do you do?
I'm Michael Seymour, currently working as the Director of Performance Marketing Analytics at Higginbotham. We are the 19th or 20th largest financial services broker in the United States, depending on who you ask. Prior to this role, spent most of my time doing advisory and consulting work in growth marketing. As you mentioned, growth marketer by trade, performance marketing usually more on the paid side. Do a little bit of that as well, but very heavily rooted in the organic side.
I love that. So you're going to have a lot to contribute here. So, and before, just, precursor, before we started recording, he did mention that he loves podcasts and creating content from it. So we're content guys, we're podcast guys. This is going to be a great chat. So, all right, Michael, first off, related to content marketing, what's working right now?
So we are bullish on generative AI, but not in the same way that most people are, at least from what I've ascertained, right? A lot of people are saying, throw the human out with the bathwater. This is all we need. ChatGPT is our new copywriter. I think those people are wrong. I think that Google has been very clear about that, as they were with backlinks in years past. Everybody's using backlinks, abusing backlinks, getting results. But what happened when the December algorithm update rolled out? All of those people had a little bit of a reckoning, right? And so I think while we're in kind of the wild west of generative AI, I think we need to be cautious with the way we leverage it, right? So for us, it helps us with ideation, massive increase in efficiency there. It helps us with outlining. It even helps us with sometimes a first draft, but we like to keep the last mile a human touch. And that's for two reasons. One, AI cannot optimize like a human yet when it comes to SEO. Two, that way we're staying proprietary, right? Like if everybody's prompting the same thing over and over and over again, eventually all this information becomes homogenized and nobody is differentiated. Now, search engines are like losing their margins because nobody can trust information that's, essentially the same answer for every question. And I think we'll see a resurgence back to a little bit of human involvement. So we're just trying to kind of future-proof that.
I like kind of where you're going with this. And I think like the natural progression of it is that well thought out, human generated, genuinely creative content is almost going to become a little rarer than it is even now because all the lazy people are just going to go the AI route and it's going to be all bland content. And so I think like it might actually carve out a little bit of a niche for us to have better content if we're willing to put in the extra work. I mean, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And I think that the people who put out the better content when they don't necessarily have to today are going to win disproportionately in the future because regardless of how things shake out, one thing is almost certain, right, is that the search landscape is going to constrict considerably, right? And so you're going to be looking at what used to be 100 possible positions, probably 10 or 15 of which were valuable or had commercial viability. That will shrink to probably 5, maybe 3. And then eventually we're going to be kind of in the voice search realm where it's kind of like 1-to-1.
Yeah. I've actually talked to some of my SEO friends about that. Like what happens when we don't need search anymore, when we're just willing to ask the AI and get the response. On the one hand, I think that's coming. On the other hand, because of AI hallucinations and all that kind of stuff, I'm not sure it's coming very soon either, So it's kind of a weird balance, I think, right?
I agree. I think it'll ebb and flow, right? We'll kind of get to the outer limits of it. People will get frustrated. The search engines are going to start losing margin on ads, and then they're going to roll back and kind of force people back into human touch. And I think if you just stay the course of making valuable content that's aligned with your ideal customer profile, you don't have to worry about any of that. You can just keep, creating leverage for yourself with these tools, increase efficiency, but, at the end of the day, the game stays the same, I think.
It reminds me of, I read a blog post from a buddy of mine. His name's Mickey Mellon, mickmell.com is his blog. And he was talking about how SEO really hasn't ever changed. Like it's really kind of always been, and like if you think about it, like it kind of has always been the same. Like it's the goal is the best content. If you create the best content, you'll end up at the top. It's as simple as that. If you're not creating better content than everybody else, you're never going to be anywhere near the top. That's it. It's a very simple process. So, all right, well, rather than belaboring SEO too much, what's not working? I mean, what, like content marketing wise, what are you shying away from, dialing down, getting rid of, whatever?
So we're also very bullish on video. However, we have noticed a trend in video, maybe specific to our industry, maybe a little wider than our industry, but we used to do a lot of like informational, like thought leadership style videos, usually like 2 minutes in length, and they did pretty well. I think those still have a really good place in kind of the mid funnel, but as attention spans continue to shorten, those things don't really do as well on social media. And so now we're leaning more into like super micro, like 15-second, 30-second, think like YouTube shorts, reels, stuff like that. And oftentimes that's not enough time to get out an informational piece, whether, maybe a snippet from something like this, but a lot of times it's really just kind of that emotional appeal content that's maybe not directly related to what you're trying to accomplish on the platform, but gets enough interest to drive people into your mid funnel. So I guess the answer of what's not working is kind of the longer form stuff on social media. Right. Now, not to say that we don't like long form stuff as a repository for micro, but yeah, we're not really leaning too heavily on like long form content natively published on social media or our website unless it's got a very specific purpose.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that's like related to just kind of that propensity to scroll? I mean, do you think that's what's doing it? I feel like Reels and TikTok probably contribute to that because it's like, watch it, 15 seconds, go, 15 seconds, go. Do you think that's what's kind of driving all that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that people have been conditioned to kind of chase that dopamine hit that they get from the short form content, right? And like you're getting the same dopamine hit from the 15-second thing that you are from the 2-minute thing, but hypothetically, you're getting more of those dopamine hits if you're doing 15-second intervals. And so I think it's just classical conditioning. It's something that one day we'll probably be doing some studies on, and maybe one day we'll see some regulation come down the pipeline. But
yeah, I can see I can even see it a little bit in myself. I'm almost embarrassed to share this, but like early in my TikTok use, I would watch a ton of stand-up comics. And the thing about stand-up comics is like they've got great short segments, 5 minutes, 4 minutes, whatever, but they sometimes take a long time to set up the joke. And so if the comic takes too long to set up the joke on TikTok, I'm gone. But it's probably a good joke. Like I probably should stick around for it. It's probably worth the laugh, but I just keep going anyway. And I'm looking at the next whatever it is. I don't even know, Red Bull stunt or something like that. I don't even know. All right, so you mentioned social media. Let's talk about channels. What channels are you seeing traction on right now? And in particular, I got to know, are you on Threads yet?
So we actually have a meeting about Threads next week.
Oh, okay.
I think Threads is the next play for sure. Being that we're primarily B2B, we spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. We don't spend as much time as we should on Twitter. We do a lot on Instagram, but that's really more like culture, recruiting. We also do a little bit on Facebook. But I would say if I had to pick one of them that was my only channel I could use, it would certainly be LinkedIn, just better aligned with our ICP. Now, on the Thread side, I mean, I am super excited about it because I feel like anytime one of these new platforms comes out, especially one that's more tailored to kind of the stuff that we're doing, the attention is never more cheap and easily available than it is today. And I think in like a historically risk adverse industry, like we missed the train on TikTok because there was just too much apprehension. And this one is going to be an easier sell. And I think, the potential upside is huge.
Well, and getting into it before there's a ton of people, before there's a ton of ads, before there's a ton of junk and mess and everything else, like dive. And the nice thing to me about Threads too is that like it's already grown faster than any other platform just because it's meta and we're all kind of already there anyway. And so it's like, well, why not just dive in and double down? So it seems like a really good now that said, I've done a terrible job of leveraging it. I'm not gonna lie, but that's okay. It is a remarkable platform, I think. So
you have time, and they said it grew faster than ChatGPT, which I mean that's kind of an insane stat in itself.
That is an insane stat in itself, man. And I'll confess on that, I still use ChatGPT, but probably not as much as I should. But I'm working on it.
Have you used the Playground?
No, tell me about that.
The Playground is where the magic happens, and they don't do a very good job promoting the Playground. It doesn't have the same pricing model as kind of the ChatGPT we all know and love, right? What it is you put a card on and then you pay kind of with tokens, like based on usage. But what's interesting about the Playground is you can actually create personas, or you can have ChatGPT create a persona, right? So like, let's say like we're trying to sell to an HR director who heads a manufacturing company with 300 people, right? I can tell ChatGPT 4 to spin me out a persona. I can then copy paste that persona into the playground to create, my user. And then I can interview that user as if I was a market researcher, right? I can pressure test value propositions. I can ask it like, what's keeping you up at night? Hey, what are the 3 disqualifiers? What are the 3 qualifiers? Insane. You can feed it samples of writing to like affect its tone. And I mean, it's infinite possibilities, but like so underutilized. And I mean, like, I'm almost remiss to talk about it in a public format like this because it's such a competitive advantage for us right now. But I mean, yeah, if you haven't checked out the playground, start watching some YouTube videos about it, put a card on file. I've used it so much in the last 2 months and I've maybe paid like $13 in usage credit.
Yeah. I use the API and I pay like $14 or $15 a month because I integrate ChatGPT with Google Sheets to auto spin out a first draft of copy for like social posts from transcripts. So I have it like recommend titles, recommend names, recommend posts for Twitter, like all that sort of stuff. And then I go in and edit it. And I recommend hashtags even as well. So it does a really good job of like doing all that like instantly with the API, which is nice. I even, because I'm a nerd, created a YouTube video on sharing with people how to do that I did too. So I'll send the link to you later if you're interested. But yeah, I'm going to check out the playground. That's fantastic. Okay. So then last question, and then I'll try to summarize this. Man, this has been great. We're going to have to do like 3 more shows. If you were forced to focus on one piece of content marketing, let's say for the next 6 months, what piece of that would you double down on?
Well, I mean, as an SEO, I'd have to say probably written content or blog content. I mean, I think, and I have in the past, completely stood up a growth strategy around a blog, right? And I think when you layer on conversion rate optimization, which is something that I've really been digging into the last few years, both on the UX side and the actual qualitative research, let's get better aligned with the ICP. There's no higher return lever that is available, in my opinion, to a growth marketer. I've netted a 31x return on an organic play. If I'm lucky, I'm delivering like a 4x ROAS or ROAS, return on ad spend on the SEM side. And I think even in like a fluke scenario, maybe 10x on the paid or SEM side, I've heard over 100 on SEO. So you can't beat it, especially with these generative tools.
Yeah, well, and the nice thing about SEO is it's the gift that just keeps on giving, right? I mean, once you can rank for something decent, it just ranks forever and ever and ever until, as long as you keep it remotely updated and whatever else. And so, but again, it's all about good quality content. Like that's where it comes down. Let's dive into this for just another moment. If you were going to double down on written content, blog content, in order to rank for SEO, what are your top recommendations around that in terms of like posting frequency or keyword strategy? Like give us a slight overview there.
As boring as it is, it's the fundamentals and the technical aspect of SEO that probably makes or breaks you the most. If your site isn't passing the Google page speed test, you shouldn't be doing SEO, right? Now, backlinks are also still to some degree important, as is, structured data, social signals, depending on the industry you're in. If you're in the your money, your life category, like we are in financial services, you also have to spend a lot of time kind of cultivating that social proof or that authority. But really throwing all of that to the side, the most important thing is, does your site load fast and does it return good user signals? And then I think once you have that foundation and you're checking those boxes, you need to understand what your ideal customer is actually looking for, right? Because SEO is only as good as the alignment between the traffic and the thing that you're trying to offer. But B, you need to use keyword research tools to validate ideas. I think a lot of people just think, I'm just going to obscurely pick something that I think is relevant to my target audience and I'm going to write about it and hope for the best, right? But like, I think if you drive that with research and then you use the tools to validate, I like Ahrefs. We also use SEMrush. There's several other tools you could use, but essentially, ideate, maybe using the generative AI to help, validate using those tools, and then kind of, I guess, a pro tip would be when you're actually doing that last mile optimization, using a tool like Surfer SEO or Market Muse to actually give you kind of like big data analysis on what the market landscape looks like, tips on how to actually optimize against the top ranking pages.
Nice. I love that. Okay. Well, if you don't mind, Michael, let me see if I can summarize our conversation so far. You can tell me if I missed anything or add anything to it. So related to content marketing for what is working, you said generative AI, but not like most people. You mentioned that Google's not going to like pure AI copy paste content, so it's probably best to stay away from that. But AI is great for ideation, outlining, creating even first drafts, but the last mile should be a human touch because nothing can compete with that right now. AI cannot optimize for SEO like humans can, and better content now will win in the future. For what isn't working related to content marketing, you said there's a trend in video where the thought leadership style isn't quite as gripping on social media. Later, you said that longer form social media is really what hasn't been working as well, and what's worked better is super micro 15-second, 30-second video content that has emotional appeal and can drive people toward the middle of the funnel, toward the deeper content. For channels that you're going to be focusing on, you said you've got a meeting next week about threads, so that's great. And you mentioned about threads that attention has never been cheaper than it is today on threads. LinkedIn is your main channel because it most aligns with you and your customers and makes a ton of sense for that. But you're also on Twitter and Facebook, though I would personally argue that Twitter is kind of on the steep decline right now. So we'll see how much longer you're on Twitter, but that's okay. And then for focus, if you had to just focus on one thing for 6 months, you said you'd focus on written content or blog content, specifically optimized for SEO because that's the gift that keeps on giving. Technical SEO makes or breaks you. You said, and I quote, if your site isn't passing the Google page speed test, you shouldn't do SEO, which is a pretty good quote because most people aren't going to pass. And you mentioned that they should absolutely do your keyword research to really know what you're writing about, but there's no higher return for growth marketing than organic SEO. So did I miss anything? You want to add anything to that?
Masterfully summarized. The only thing that I would add is, everything should start with alignment between your value proposition and your ICP, right? So that's another kind of disqualifier for SEO, right? Like if you're researching keywords about golf clubs and you sell cars, the golf club content's not probably going to help you as much as writing about tires or windshield wipers.
That's right. No, that's great. That's great. Well, Michael, this has been great. I'm putting you on my short list to have back on the show as often as possible. And in the meantime, thanks for your time today.
Adam, I really appreciate it. It's been a great time.
Thanks for listening to Get a Word In, brought to you by Edgewise.media, a podcast-first marketing content agency. To learn more about Edgewise, visit www.edgewise.media. I'm your host, Adam Walker. To connect with me, check out my blog at adamjwalker.com. Thanks for listening, and make sure to subscribe now so you don't miss our next great conversation about content marketing.